All right, well, welcome everyone. Many of you are Haven staff members, and some of you are guests today of the Upper Valley Haven. And this is a webinar that we're presenting with our good friend Jeffrey Hamelman as part of one of the Haven staff-led committees. It's our Health and Wellness Committee. And this story and Jeffrey's work in Uganda speaks to us so much about health and wellness in general. And so I want to give him a warm welcome. This format, this Zoom webinar format, means that everyone is muted, but we will take questions at the end, either in the chat box or in the Q&A, which I will monitor. But Jeffrey's going to go through his presentation before taking any questions, and then we can open it up to conversation at the end. If anyone has issues, just again, send me a chat and I will keep an eye on that. So I am going to unpin myself and take it away. Jeffrey Hamelman, give yourself a little introduction too. I should have done that first.
Okay, thank you so much, Laura, for organizing this. I'm really appreciative of that. And thanks too to everybody who's taking time out of your day to watch this. This is a compilation of some photos and videos that I've put together that give somewhat of an accounting of the 2 trips that I've made to Uganda, to the Oruchinga refugee settlement, where I participated in the training of 24 refugees in baking. I was there last October, and I was there again in March. Both times it was 2 weeks on the ground, and I'll be there for 1 full month in September, again, being with the bakers. So this is probably about a 30-minute presentation, mostly photos, but also a few short videos. And here we go. That first photo is from the sky in the airplane just before descending to land at Entebbe outside Kampala. So there's 3 segments to this. The first one you can see is the bakery, the bakers, and the children, and there are 2 more that follow. So this is Ayelet. She lives in Los Angeles, and she had the vision of creating a bakery that would both empower people, mostly women, and also feed the most vulnerable people in the settlement, which is the children. The concept began sometime, I think, in 2021, and the bakery opened pretty much right when I was there in October. These 2 remarkable women, Angela on the left and Sophie on the right, they are Ugandan. They manage the bakery and do all the coordination, and they're extraordinary beings in every way. So the first trip that I went on, the photo on the left, there's Angela on the left. Next to her is Sophie Molinaro. She was baking at Zingerman's Bakery in Michigan at the time. She accompanied me. Then there's Sophie, and then there's me. The photo on the right has a new face. That's Mitch Stam, who lives in Rhode Island. He came for the March trip, and he and I will be spending that full month together starting in September. So that's the team. This is the building that was a house where a single mother and 5 children lived. The landlady built another house for them right next to this one so that this could be the main place for the bakery. Inside the bakery, there's a 4-chamber wood-burning oven that you see on the left. You can see a bunch of logs not on fire underneath the oven. That's where the heat is emanating from. And then off to the right, there's a very ingenious wood-fired proof box that puts warmth and humidity into that chamber with the open door. That's where the breads rise. There is water at the bakery. That's, I believe, a 2,000-liter tank that collects rainwater. So that's pretty valuable. The bakers have, on the left, you'll see they have a toilet. This is a very common looking toilet, not just in rural areas, some in cities too. This would be the extent of it. On the right, there's an area for people to clean up if they so choose. The bakers got a pad and a pen so they could take notes about how to fire the oven. It's a somewhat complicated oven that was built by a man named Vianney, who you will see shortly. and he gave very detailed description of the firing of the oven, and he spent a lot of time helping train the bakers. He's been very invaluable. There he is with his eyes closed, explaining things. He's got a pair of high heat gloves on. We brought them on our first trip. Prior to those, he would use socks to get trays in and out of the oven. So that was a pretty big step up. This is not an uncommon sight, preparing the wood for the oven. This is showing the bakers how to test for the proper consistency of the dough while it's mixing. Here are a couple of women around the table where we scale and make the breads. They always came to the bakery impeccably dressed. The patterns on the clothes signify their nationality. In Orochinga, there are Rwandans, Burundis, and Congolese. And I don't know the differences in the clothing patterns, but I know that the pattern expresses the nationality. This is Marion baking some buns. Buns were a very, very big part of the bakery's output. In fact, the great majority of it. There she is again. We brought a headlamp for the second visit so that they could look deep in the oven and see what was going on. Here are two of the most delightful photos imaginable. This was the first day of baking. That's Vianney on the left, who built the oven and trained the bakers in the use of it. And on the right is Precious. She's never baked a loaf of bread in her life. And boy, was she happy. That's Claudine. The next few slides are going to be testimonials that the bakers wrote about what the experience has been like for them. That's Ryan. He's now wearing his fancy clothes that were sewn by the women. We had a graduation after the first session, and they all got a certificate, and boy, were they proud to get that. Here's his words about the bakery. And this is brother and sister. That's Teresa and Emmanuel. They're wonderful, wonderful young people, and they're both deeply committed to doing really great work in the bakery. And here's Teresa's commentary. I think every one of the bakers has a very similar parallel type of feeling and experience about what the bakery has done for them. And that just makes my sense of commitment so completely thorough that I just want to do everything I can for them. Square tinned loaves in the English style, they were a big part of the output. That's the only bread that we really saw in the shops in Uganda. We had decided very early on that it wasn't our role to teach nutrition and, oh, you should do sourdough, and hey, I'm the white guy with a lot of experience, so just listen up and do what I say. That was tossed out the window in 2 minutes, and we decided no, if we'll make the bread that they're familiar with and that they like, and our role will be support and teaching techniques and skills. So that's really how we focused. The buns, these are a huge part of the output. And these have been given out, tens of thousands of them, to children in the refugee settlement. And it's an extraordinary thing. You'll see a couple of short videos later that shows the bread distribution. This was the first day of baking, and who would think that something so simple as a little 50-gram round roll could bring so much joy? That was, again, the first day of baking. All the bakers got to take bread home to their families. It was really an amazing experience for them. There's Sophie bagging up some of the bread after it went through the slicer. The only things that are powered by electricity are the slicer and the mixer. Other than that, it's hands and the wood-burning oven. There was also plenty of time for games and just notice that little baby on her back. A number of the women, they all walk to the bakery. There's no cars or public transportation, really. So everybody walks to the bakery. It could be miles even in one direction. And a number of the women have babies, and they strap them on the back and they stay there unless they're nursing or unless they're sleeping, like these two little guys or girls. That's a fairly common sight in the bakery. There's another picture of a couple of little sleeping children. The bakers receive lunch that's cooked over fire. And this is a huge thing for them, because typically one meal a day is about what's expected, maybe once a week, meat. The refugees get $3.74 per month from the UN for food, $3.74. So maybe that's, I don't know, half of a latte or something. So having a lunch provided has been a great boon. This was one of the more copious ones, starting from like the west over there, the left side. That's a millet bread that was really delicious. And then the white thing is called posho. It's a cornmeal, almost like a polenta. And then there's some little Ugandan eggplants. And below that is some absolutely delicious beans called nambale, some of which I smuggled into the US, and they're now growing very happily in my garden in Vermont, I'm happy to say. We had rice and beans pretty much every day. And in the middle, the rarity, that's a chunk of goat meat. The children eat first, and then the women, and then the men, and then last but not least, there's chickens that were kind of walking everywhere while we're working, and they got to pick a little bit too. The bakers all got clogs, and they scrubbed them meticulously every day. I literally watched a couple of the guys spending about 4 minutes just to clean their shoes inside and out at the end of one of the work days. This was those happy refugee bakers when they, quote unquote, graduated at the end of the October training. There's me with a couple of the bakers and some of the really dear children. That's one thing that really characterized both trips, was that it wasn't that we were standing around with clipboards and making notes and writing reports. I mean, it was shared humanity. I mean, we were working with them. We were shoulder to shoulder with them. There were children everywhere. We were eating with them, playing with them, dancing, singing. So it was a really, really, really rich experience. Oh yeah, there was an interest in variations of skin color. I was quite surprised when someone expressed that they liked the color of my skin, because, and I think you can probably pick it out there, I found the shades of brown to black to be much, much more interesting. Anyway, that was that. Oh, there's a couple of the children. That's Angela's daughter, Ashley on the left, and on the right, that's Selah. That's Sophie's daughter. Sophie was at a hospital visiting a sick relative. It was nighttime, and Selah was about 2 years old when her birth mother went to the hospital grounds and dumped her into a septic pit. She probably couldn't afford to feed her. And the night watchman heard these little wails, and so he fished her out of the septic pit, and Sophie helped to nurse her back to health. And then she said she was going to adopt the baby, and people said to her, no, 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 that baby's cursed. You can't adopt her. And Sophie said, this baby was abandoned once, and I'm not going to let her be abandoned twice. So she is raising her, and she's a real gem, that little girl. She's 6 now. Oh yeah, there's a lot of peanuts in Uganda, and so I whipped up a peanut butter cookie recipe, and the children got to scale it out and make it, and everybody enjoyed eating peanut butter cookies, also known as G-nut cookies. Oh yeah, and then Sarah in October, she made this really horrific, gross buttercream out of shortening and icing sugar, and we made little paper cornucopias, and the children wrote their name on their palm with the buttercream, and then they had so much joy licking it off their fingers. So Sophie has 21 siblings, and this is one of her nieces, Rama. And we took Rama and some of the other children out for ice cream. We worked 6 days a week, but on our Sunday, we took a bunch of kids out for ice cream. And when the children look at you, boy, they really, really look at you. And I like this photo because I like the pink headband and the pink stripe on her shirt. And then, of course, that pink mouth with the ice cream. That was a real fun day. Yeah, this little boy is getting ready for a treat. And this little guy, probably too young for a bun, but he thought maybe my finger would be a good substitute. He's got quite a deep gaze too. Oh, and when we got back in March, Mitch, Sarah, and I, we sent some money to Sophie and Angela so that there could be a birthday party for some of the children. And the girl in the foreground, her name is Princess, and the party actually fed 150 people. They even got meat. And then there were presents and dancing and singing and music, and they got soda, and it was really quite the deal. So now we decided, instead of doing birthday parties, which might feel like, hey, what about my child? We're going to do 3 or 4 times a year. It's just going to be called Children's Day, and we'll have a special thing for the children. Those were some of the girls in their birthday party finest. Oh, even the grown-ups got to horse around. That's Sophie wearing my hat, and that's me in my alter ego, I guess. So just before returning in March, the landlady had built this structure right by the road so that people going by would know there's a bakery and they could go inside and buy bread. So the bread is sold in the front left portion, and then there's 3 other rooms that are used for different purposes. And this was the first day that the bakery structure was open to the public. And that was the end of that first day, where they're tallying up the money that was brought in. Okay, so Orochinga, it's the oldest refugee settlement in Uganda. It's in the very southwest corner of the country. You can see the hills of Tanzania from that area. And these were some of the common sites there. This part of Uganda is the banana capital, and you'd see these trucks just overflowing with green bananas that were going, I guess a lot of them would be going to Kampala and the other cities in the north. You also saw this all over the place, probably 100 pounds of banana on a bicycle that was pushed by whoever was making the delivery. The area is at 1,500 meters elevation, so 4,500 feet, and the hills they're gradual and long. They're not particularly steep for the most part, but you'd see men pushing these bikes for really, really long distances. The bicycle was a huge form of transport. Fuel in Uganda is considerably more expensive than it is in the US. And so this kind of transportation is very commonplace. Another important commodity is wood, eucalyptus for the most part. So here's a guy, his bike being loaded up with wood. How he balances it, I don't know. How he gets it to his destination, I don't know. I don't think I'd want to trade with him though. And here's three of the bakers who are walking from the bakery. Their baskets are full with bags of buns, and they're going to one of the weekly markets, walking to and from the market to sell all the products. This is at the local marketplace. I felt terrible after seeing this photo. I felt very, very insensitive. You can tell that that woman wasn't particularly pleased for me to have taken her photo without requesting it. But you see foot-powered sewing machines very commonly, and tailoring can be a way for people to bring in some income. Another way is people who can grow some food and sell it at the markets. And the markets are divided into kind of genres. So there's the fabric area, there's the fruit area, the vegetable area. Here's a bunch of cabbages. The food was actually, the vegetables were exceptionally flavorful. And I'm sure one reason is because they're not coming 3,000 miles away. They're coming, maybe 3 miles away. And so fresh as could be. And the fruits were absolutely extraordinary, being bananas, pineapples, papayas, things like that, watermelon. And the avocados were pretty extraordinary too. Here's one of the sellers of the bread in the sugarcane part of the market. Dried fish, that's another staple. And every market I was at, there was a butcher, and the butcher would go out back before the market began and slaughter an animal. You can see the tail down by the guy's right leg. And then just spend the day hacking the animal up into pieces and selling it on the spot. Also the head, I guess there's things you can do with the head. I'm sure there's a lot of nutrition in that. Water is quite a big issue. The UN allocates 2 jerry cans per day per family, if I'm not mistaken. That would be about 10 gallons a day, regardless of family size. And that would be for cooking, washing clothes, washing bodies, and drinking. People that either couldn't, sometimes it's an 8-hour line just to get the water before you're online for 8 hours. A lot of people got water out of some of the ponds that we saw that did not look clean. There was one pond that we saw, there was someone bathing, someone washing clothes, someone fishing, and somebody retrieving water to walk back to their home with. Here are typical homes. When the refugees arrive at Orichinga, they're given 4 eucalyptus poles and a tarp. That's home. And they're given a machete and a hoe, so they can, if they have some seeds, they can hopefully grow some food to supplement the $3.74 that they get monthly. And once they get to the next level of dwelling, it's very commonly going to look just like this. It's not that these refugees arrive there and then it's like, well, we'll have a nice home in the city in a couple of months. Many of them are born there and they'll probably spend their entire life there. This is kind of open-ended. They're living there. This is one of the piles of bricks that you see everywhere. They make the bricks out of the soil, which is red like the bricks, and then they kind of mash them into sort of a loaf pan and then empty it out, and they build these big structures. And then the 3 or 4 holes that you see at the base, they light fires in there, and the fires burn for days and days and days, and that is what vitrifies the clay into bricks. And that obviously is what's used for the dwellings. There's some more dwellings. fire for outdoor cookery, and on the left, I think that's a bunch of beans drying. I never could tell if that sign on the door says Lisa or USA. I never knew, but anyway, just another view of a house. This style of house wasn't too common in the settlement. I'm told that it's very common in northern Uganda. And you can see the construction is pretty basic. This is, if you can see the sign next to the door, it's a hotel. Okay. So we made a number of trips into the settlement to distribute free bread to the children. I was told that the buns are really, really special for the children because they get something that's whole and it's all theirs. They don't have to share it with anyone. So it's really special. And the bakery is committed to about 20% of their production being given away to the children. And that's an enormous benefit to the settlements. It's a strain on the bakery because the bakery it relies on donations to stay open at this point. The huge goal that I have is to help bring it as close to self-sufficiency as possible. The entire team has that same goal. And that's a big challenge because of the amount that's given away. And also because since most everything is sold right within the refugee settlement, the people don't have much money. And so the price that things are sold for is very, very, very close to the amount of money it costs to produce it. So very, very small profit margins. This is Sarah and Sophie on one of our trips into the settlement. We tried different methods to keep the distribution organized, but the hunger is so severe that it always turned into chaos. So one method was, okay, we'll put them all in the community center, the children, and then we'll just let them out one at a time. And there were two men from the community guarding the door, and it became kind of a stampede. And then some children would get a bun and then climb in that window in the back and get online again. And you can't blame them. I mean, they're hungry. These are some of the children online waiting. That very thin hair that you see is one of the signs of malnutrition. Sometimes we had bread enough to give to some of the adults as well, but that was pretty uncommon. And Sophie has this magic gift of being able to just have everyone gather around her. And here's a video of her gathering everybody before the bread distribution. Okay, so we would hand out all these buns, and it was an incredible, joyous elation to be able to see how happy the children were. But every single time we did it, we ran out of buns long before we ran out of hands that were desperately seeking the buns. So this was the end of one of the bun distribution days, and you'll see the village elder handing out the last 6 of them. I've been volunteering at the Haven Food Shelf for like 5 years now, and I've seen hundreds of people, help them get food, and there's so much need that's so visible there. But I have to say that every person I've helped at the Haven is rich compared to these people, and a lot of reason is because there's no infrastructure in Uganda to help these people. That's in the Haven, we know how much food they can get, and the contrast is really pretty stark. So, I mean, these things really show why the bakers are so valuable to their community. These little guys, this was right after that bread distribution. I don't believe they got bread. And the next, there's only a few slides left, and they're happier slides. So kind of the joy that everybody felt when they got some bread, it's just all over their faces. This little guy is already learning how to do grown-up work. So this is a video, a short one of when we were leaving one of the distributions. That's another village elder up there, and they're sending us away with goodbyes. Whew. I've seen these photos and videos like a dozen times, and the emotions are always so fresh, like it's the first time. I mean, half my heart is there, and I know the other people who've come, Sarah and Mitch, they feel the same way. So there's one more video, and this was not uncommon, where when we were done distributing, there would be some kind of a spontaneous dance or singing of gratitude for the bread. So this is the last slide of the presentation. It doesn't cost money to sing and dance. So that's the last slide. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them if I can.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. And I would be happy to help monitor any questions. There's some really nice comments coming in from many of your friends in the chat, Jeffrey, which maybe you'll be able to look at after. But I was just reflecting a little bit on the end. If there's nothing more than bread that speaks to health and wellness, this is sort of what you and I chatted about, presenting this through our committee. And this is the most basic form of health and wellness, is to offer bread. And I didn't have much of a dry eye throughout your whole presentation. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we can't really envision the hunger. I mean, you see the things in a magazine, they show some sad looking child, but it doesn't really convey it that well. And we know that, we're giving one bun, and maybe that's not much in a sense, but maybe it also is, because maybe it's giving a sense of hope to the child who gets the bun. Even if the hope isn't long-lived, at least they know that you can have hope in the world and it could be fulfilled.
Okay, a couple of questions have come in. Nancy Gallant asked if you could speak about how the different cultures that have come together in the camps have managed to share so much under the stress that they're in.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I can't say that I'm qualified to answer it accurately, but I can say that I've been deeply impressed by the fact that every one of the refugees comes from unspeakable horrors. I mean, these are war-torn countries, Rwanda, Burundi, and Congo. And these people, they flee after seeing their house burned down or their parents being murdered in front of them. And they wind up here. And in spite of the terrible hardships of the life and the absolutely zero prospects for most all of them, it's preferable to being back where they were. And one thing that's impressed me a lot is you have 3 different cultures who are joining up in the bakery. And it's remarkable how they harmonize together. They make decisions together. I see that Angela in Uganda has raised her hand about
She would
something.
like to speak, yes.
I'd love to hear her speak.
Yeah, I would like to speak about that same concern. We have a program still under ADAMÂ Foundation that is doing peace building programs, which help people to coexist together, and using drama and other forms of uniting people. We do counseling, community group counseling, and also we use drama and poems to have them unite together. We talk to them about how to live together, work together. So they do lots of community work together. Like, for instance, if their community needs to be cleaned, we have a group, it's called Umoja Group, and it supports the refugees to work together, mostly the youth. So during this time, they are able to laugh together, do activities together, even do sport and play together. So this helps them to keep in unity. Of course, there are those instances where they disagree on several things, but they live together because they have common things they do together through our peaceful coexistence programs. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Angela. Great to hear your voice.
Yeah, thank you, Geoffrey.
I'll see you Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. So this experience is not by any means past tense, because every day there's likely to be half a dozen text messages coming in, and then we'll Zoom 1 to 2 hours a week. So it's totally present tense activity. And I always look forward to seeing the whole team on Fridays.
That was wonderful. I loved seeing her hand go up in the participants box. Leslie Rimmer asked how people are selected to be part of the baking program.
I think I'll ask Angela and or Sophie. If Sophie's around, maybe she can answer that question.
I didn't see Sophie.
Well, she'd probably be with Angela
Oh,
in
okay,
the
of
same
course.
place.
Is right here.
Yes, I'm right here. I'm
Let's
so
hear it,
happy to
Sophie.
be on this platform. Thanks so much, Jeffrey, for organizing this. Yeah, most of them are active to be part of the baking team because it is something that they have ever thought of being part of because of hunger issues. And yeah, some of them are employed. They are able to support a bigger community because they distribute bread to the entire community where part of their children also receive food. So I think it makes them feel more active to be part of it. And I think that's where they find joy and hope and healing.
And how are they chosen, Sophie?
So they are chosen according to the different nationalities that are in the camp. So we have representatives, those who are trained so that they can also go out to the community and train others.
And initially it was going to be all women, correct? And then there were a bunch of the men wanted to be part of it. And so now it's 3/4 women. Am I right?
Yes, we realize that there are some activities that may need men work, like splitting firewood. There are some heavy, maybe anything that can need more energy. We thought we would have men on the team so that we can have a balanced team.
So this is Angela speaking. I would like to supplement what Sophie is saying. And I'm talking about the way refugees are really interested in participating in the bakery activities. Number one, it generates income for them. There is basically no work within the community because there are no industries, there are no factories. So we have a group of youth that are really idle in the settlement, and they may, like some of them, engage into activities which are not helpful for their lives. So the ones that are lucky are able to join the bakery. And the way they were selected at the beginning, because we looked at vulnerable women who were sent to us through a referral from American Refugee Committee, because they had been identified as vulnerable women who had received violence, sexual, gender-based violence, and other forms of violence, and they had nowhere to live or start from. So they referred them for support. So we got a list, and then from that list, it was like a bigger list, but because we had little funding, and we had to start small. So we went back to the community and requested that we narrow down the list to a fewer participants. So we narrowed according to priority, the ones who are really, really badly off, like the child-headed families, where you'd find a child who has like 16 years, 18, and she has siblings who are also very younger than her or him. So that's how we got these referrals, mostly for the women. Then for the youth who are male, they found us organizing, trying to build up the bakery. So they were concerned. They met us. We were actually on a Zoom somewhere in the compound. They're like, but why do you have only women? We are also here. We need to participate. We are idle in the community. Actually, they offered to do volunteering work. And their team leader by then was Karim, who was requesting and said, please, we can just join you for the sake of gaining the skill. Let's be part of it. So from that, we had Ayelet, who was also on Zoom. He's like, okay, she said, let me speak to that person. So he introduced himself. He's a refugee from Congo. They talked, they had a long talk together. So we agreed, let's have also the male join the group. So they are very helpful because they do some activities yes, our women are also are strong. Also, the male also support for some key activities where we really need the heavy support of carrying, going everywhere. So it's a team that has 4 nationalities. We have the Burundians, the Rwandese, the Congolese, and 2 Ugandans.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, Sophie, but there's, I think you told me this, there's 15 communities within Orichinga, and then at Nakivale, which is a contiguous refugee settlement, much, much, much larger. There are 70 different communities. And Sophie, you have done counseling at every single community. Is that true?
Yes, I have done. I'm a psychologist counselor, and I manage trauma care for the refugees. I've served in Nachivale, which has 70 communities, and in Orichinga. Orichinga has 15 communities, you're right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, I see another question from Leslie. There's actually a couple of questions. I'll just say them. I would like to preface it by saying I'd love for you to talk about the meaning of the word ADAMA. And one question is, what is the greatest need and how can people help? And then Kristen Coates wrote, are there any microloan structures that can help the bread makers to create other businesses?
I don't know the answer to Kristen's question. If anybody wants to help financially, it's a massive benefit. And the easiest way, the most direct way is, so ADAMA, ADAMA -foundation.org. That's the foundation that Ayelet started to start the bakery. And you can donate on that site. And I should say that money that's donated, except for a very small bank transfer, 100% of the money goes to support the bakery. There's no dubious administrative fees at all. It all goes to the bakers. So ADAMA-foundation.org.
I just put the link in the chat.
Oh, thank you for doing that. And I don't think Ayelet's on the presentation. She texted me beforehand, and I think she was having some difficulties getting in, but she explained to me that it's a Hebrew word. She's an Israeli woman, and it's a Hebrew word that has, the roots of it are both, it means earth, and it's also the root for the word Adam, the name Adam, as in Adam and Eve.
It looks like there's, let's see, any other, let's see. Oh, Angela has her hand up again. Go ahead. Maybe that was before. Okay. I really appreciated that you mentioned the work you do here at the Haven, Jeffrey, in our food shelf. You are a constant, and actually I'm seeing some more hands go up, but as you said, it's all relative, and the relative wealth compared to those that the bakery is serving in the refugee settlements, it's quite extraordinary. So Sarah Molinaro has her hand up.
Hi, Sarah.
Let's see if I can, let's see. Allow to talk, there you go.
Oh, that's Ayelet.
Sarah, you are, there you go.
Can you hear me? It's actually Ayelet.
It is, it's Ayelet.
Can you
I
hear
beg your
me?
pardon. Yes, we can
yes.
hear you.
Hi, thank you, Jeffrey. This is completely wonderful.
Thank you.
Hosting. I just want to say one more word about ADAMA. ADAMA is actually earth and soil in Hebrew. And the reason I chose it was that this whole work for me came from dreaming about the war and the end of war, and those Palestinian women that would come to me and feed me bread. And I decided one day to do something for women around the world and children that actually survived war. And the first place I started was Lebanon, and the second one is here in Uganda. And for me, the choice of the word ADAMÂ came from this really giving, like imagining the people that lost the right, the human right to be on their land, and bring, make bread and food and feed their children. And I imagine restoring the community and making bread and feeding all around the world. And that's why I chose the word ADAMÂ. I just want to say that.
Thank you.
And thank you for
ADAMÂ.
the beautiful presentation.
Okay, it is, oh, Angela, hand is back up. And I'm just going to note it is 12:53 here. And why don't we go a few more minutes, Jeffrey? And let's go back to Angela and Sophie.
Yeah, I would like to elaborate about the financial situation, which came in through as a question from someone on the platform. So there are no financial institutions within the refugee camp, especially Ruchinga. There is a small one which was started in Nakivale, and it's a group of refugees who have saved some little money. Their income levels are really low. Per day, they earn less than $1. So their income levels are really low, so they save little money. At the end of the month, they agree on which person to support to start up something small. So that is for Nakivale. Then for Ruchinga, they have groups that have formed to save, but because their income levels are not, they are 0 or less than 1, so they are still having difficulty. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Okay, Michael Redmond has a question. Why don't we take one more question, and that is, what is needed for the bakery, so specifically, to become self-sustaining? Obviously, more financial assistance, but what else?
Yeah, there's each member of the team might have a slightly different answer. My perspective is that we've had the offer of a donation of an oven, an electric oven. This could go a long way towards making it self-sustaining, because the wood-burning oven in the 4 chambers, there's a 50°C difference in temperature, which means a huge amount of shifting of each tray during the bake. And so that's the limiting factor. So we should be getting an electric oven there at some point, which is great, except that there's every other day on average, the power goes out, maybe for an hour, maybe for several hours. So either a generator or a solar installation. I've reached out to a Vermont company to see about them supporting a solar installation, but that's complicated because the building is rented, it's not owned. A longer term goal is for the bakery to be in a building that is owned. Basically, it's hard to get full self-sustainability because, again, the products are sold in the refugee settlement, and so the prices are the amount it sells for is very close to the amount that it costs to produce the product.
Sarah has her hand up again, and then we'll probably close this out. I'll just say before Sarah speaks that we are recording this. I will upload the recording to our YouTube channel for the Haven, and then I'll share that with everyone who's been on the call and those who registered, and it's then easily shareable to people who couldn't attend today. Okay, Sarah, please go ahead.
Actually, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, it's Ayelet.
Ayelet,
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm using Sarah's link. It's Ayelet. I just want to say that on our website, which tells the story that Jeffrey told in even bigger length, we have a donation button. As Jeffrey said, it goes straight to the bakery. We pay a few $1,000s a month to hold the bakery. And also there's one specific thing that we're building, like a little motorcycle with a back that will take, that instead of the woman with the basket that you saw, we will be able to take the bread to different markets, and that would be a huge difference. So any contribution would be really, really appreciated. Thank you.
Laura, thank you so much for all your efforts in organizing this. It really means so much to me.
It
Thank
was an
you. And
honor, Jeffrey,
thanks everybody
honestly.
who checked it out. And I hope you can share it with people that might appreciate seeing it.
It's extraordinary, and I think I can't, I probably speak for others and say I'm ready to go with you on the next trip. So thank you so much. Thanks for all who attended. It's delightful to have included Jeffrey as part of the Upper Valley Havens Health and Wellness Committee presentation. And thank you so much, Jeffrey, for all you do for the Haven and for our world. So thanks very much, everyone, and we'll be sharing the link. Thank you.